for kids, but we also see, for example, gesture search shows as you draw a D, let's say, over your context list, it would jump to the D section, so you could look through your contacts, and you're actually seeing the visual trace there. So what we were interested in is, from an interaction standpoint, whether the user's behavior, their actual gestures that they made, might differ at all, and when they could see the trace visually versus when they could not, and how this might affect the system's ability to understand those gestures and then act on them. So I'm going to already give you the punchline for this talk, so you can follow along with me and see how we have showed by our study that gestures made by kids and adults with visual feedback differ from those made without it. So you see an example here of two diamonds made by a child, the same child, one in the case of feedback and one in the case where no feedback was shown. Second, some of these differences that we see in the gestures actually do make it harder to interpret the gestures. And in general, we see that kids, especially more than adults, prefer to see visual feedback during their gesture interaction. So in the concluding, our recommendation is providing visual feedback during surface gesture interactions for kids is really important, and now I'm going to talk to you about how we got to that conclusion. So this study was done in the context of our ongoing MAGIC project. MAGIC is mobile, touch, and gesture interaction for children. Those of you following along, the T is silent. This project is currently funded by the NSF, and we're looking at touch and gesture on mobile devices because they're currently the most common touchscreen devices like smartphones and tablets that kids have access to these days, but we're really excited about the future of this, maybe extending to smartboards and tabletops, and so if you work in that area, please come and talk to us after, or me after. And I don't have to tell this audience too much more about the rampant spread of mobile touchscreen devices, especially kids using them. What may be less obvious, though, is why it might be necessary to improve kids' interactions with these devices. Everyone has heard stories of how someone's 1 or 2-year-old is already way better, supposedly, with the iPad than they are. But what we actually see is that although kids are picking up some of the simpler interactions and having success, studies are showing that kids are having trouble with more complex gesture interactions. So for example, things like manual dexterity and shape creation skills that differ with different age groups of children affect kids' ability to perform gestures that are expected by today's devices. And also, some of the things like manual motor control limitations can cause things like unintended interaction or difficulty with dragging and dropping motions. And many of these interaction challenges, what really results